Hey, Justin from Goldpenguin here, and this is the second video in a multi-part series of designing, creating, and hosting a website using Breakdance on WordPress. So today we're going to be talking about a few things with settings. So we're going to go through the Breakdance defaults and then some Breakdance global settings. Again, this is aimed at people that have not really made a website before or are very new to this. So we're going to head into this. So if you watched our last video, you should have Breakdance installed through local and have a website up and running, testing website. So if you have Breakdance installed, go here. If not, check out that video. So we're going to start off by going to the Breakdance settings, and I'm kind of going to just run through this and explain what each thing does. License key will be the key that you get when you purchase Breakdance. You could check to receive beta version updates, but I honestly would not. Global styles we are going to head into after, and I'm going to explain some things about styling and kind of just explain some basic elements in Breakdance. Theme, keep your theme disabled if you are going to build your website using Breakdance, which basically means taking all of these little blocks, designing things, your header, your footer, the content. If you're going to be doing that, then I would keep this disabled. If you do have another theme that you've downloaded from a website like Theme Forest or any of those websites, then you can keep it and just edit the theme with Breakdance, but in this tutorial series, we're going to disable the theme and build a complete website from scratch. WooCommerce, we will get to this later. There's nothing really important here for now, but WooCommerce is going to be how we set up a shop. This is a real estate website, so I'm not really sure what we're going to be selling because we're not selling houses through PayPal, but so we'll worry about that later. User access is going to be if we create other users and allow them to publish blogs, publish content. This is where we're going to do that. So we'll give them access to this. But we also are going to have a tutorial on client access where if you are building a website for a client, which like let's just say you're building this for, let's say your grandma or someone that you're trying to figure this out to, you could give them access to only edit the text on the pages and the content without actually changing the design, so you don't have to worry about them screwing anything up. So that's another thing that we'll go through. Maintenance mode, your website is not live right now, so it really does not matter, but this is if you do need to take the website offline, you can go with a coming soon or a maintenance page. Again, doesn't really matter now because no one can visit your website, so I would leave this disabled. But if for some reason you are live, you don't need another plugin, which with some other builders, if you have a coming soon or a maintenance page, you have to install another plugin that kind of lets you do that. So you could go ahead and give a coming soon page and then set the page of your website that you want that to be at. And then, you could also bypass that if you want to, so for certain people. But again, I don't think you need that now, but definitely something useful for the future. Performance, we're going to have a whole separate video on performance. This stuff might look really overwhelming, but this is for people that are obsessed with speed. So if you really want to, get rid of small little things on the website to increase the speed, things that don't really impact much, then this will be where we do that. But again, we'll go through performance in a later video. But for now, if you recognize any of these, then go ahead and disable what you don't want. API keys are going to be interesting. So we're going to go through a few other tutorials later. This is going to be Google reCAPTCHA, which is when you have a checkbox when you fill out a form and you have to click what's a vote or whatever in the picture. So this is if you kind of want to have something custom. We might be doing something like this. We do have a tutorial on setting this up, which is on Goldpenguin's website. But I'd say the one thing that's going to be pretty useful will be MailChimp. We will be doing a tutorial. We already have one on the website, but I'll show you how to integrate it when we actually build it. This is going to be when someone contacts you on your website, it's going to add them to a MailChimp database, which is wonderful, on top of sending an email to you, because now you're going to collect their emails and just have a newsletter database or whatever you end up deciding to go with that. Other than that, we might go into Google Maps. I'm not really sure yet, kind of to display where you're at, but we might be able to get away without using a key. But this key basically is going to be any website or any kind of integration you're trying to do. You'll get the key from this website and then you'll paste it here and it just, clicks like a puzzle. But for now we don't need to worry about it, but that's what that does. Post types, we don't need to worry about this. Advanced, don't need to worry about that. Design, custom code. Okay, so we'll go through custom code and then we'll go through tools. So this is going to be if you are really, you don't want to add many plugins or you have something that you need on every page. Header code and footer code will be where you put that custom HTML. And what this does is anything in head is going to load pretty quickly when the website starts, and then footer code is going to be after all the content loads, then we can load something. So what I've done in the past in the header code is add Google Analytics tracking. So this is going to go on every single page. So you add the tracking ID and then it does this. Luckily for us, we have Google Site Kit, which there will be a tutorial. I was going to do this now, but realized you need to wait till the website is live to do this. But we do have tutorials on how to add Site Kit to your Breakdance website. But for now, we're not going to do that. We will head back to that later. But Google Site Kit lets you track where people are coming from and monitor the stats on your website in general, but we don't need to use this. But very useful to know if you have anything that you need to run on every page, some kind of code snippet or anything. And then last but not least, tools. If you are ever saving things in Breakdance and something is somewhat broken or you see it in an editor but you don't see it on the main page, you can go ahead and regenerate the cache and this could fix it. There's a lot of other ways to fix this issue or issues like this, but this could be a lifesaver for you. This could be the easy fix. Soft and total reset, we're not going to be touching these. These will reset things back to scratch. And then exporting settings would be really the only thing that I could see us using in the future if we're trying to remove this website and then upload it somewhere. In one of the last videos, I'll show you how to go from your local WordPress website to a host, and we can actually use local and connect it directly to a host, which is one of the main benefits of using it, probably why it's free, because they want you to build the website on it and then one click, boom, launch, which will be great for people that are new to web development. So again, we'll go through that at the end of this tutorial. If you're not that tech savvy, there are other ways of doing it if you are more tech savvy, but honestly, it's such a pain that one click, publish to the web is definitely going to be the best thing, easiest thing to do. So that's a general of the Breakdance settings. Now I'm going to head into global styles and we're going to launch Breakdance. Okay, so in this page, I've gone ahead and added a bunch of headings, some text, and a button. So we'll go over how to add elements to the website shortly after this, but yeah, so basically when you add headings to a page, they will have a tag on it. And so the tags will range from H1 to H6, which is in this list right here. And H1 is the most important, going all the way down to H6, and then we have text. So this is kind of to show search engines and just to kind of organize your website, where your H1 tag, you're only going to have one of these on each page, and you're going to call it, the services we offer. And then H2 will be things like web development. And then you can add a second H2, and you can say, let's say digital marketing. And yeah, you could go from there, but that's just structure. I'm going to be showing you how the global settings work with that today. So to edit global settings, go into any Breakdance page and hit the 3 menu bar icons, and then you will see global settings. That will open up this menu, and we're going to be touching 2 of these things today. We're going to touch colors and we're going to do typography. So colors is going to let you change the text for the entire brand of the website. If you want to change the text, which is text, that will be over here. And then headings are going to be anything you add will be, this color. So if we want to make it this or whatever, up to you. This is just the default. So it really is just going to be if you're styling your website and you have your brand colors and you know what you want your headings to be, you know what color you want your links to be on hover, everything, then this is what you do. Also, the background color, you could see this is not white. It's a little like peachy. Yeah, so this is where you set all of these settings that are going to be on every page, instead of going individually and changing the background text on a background color on every page, all of that. And then the most important thing is typography. So if you want to change the fonts on your website, you have tons of options here. We also have a tutorial if you want to add what is Black Ops 1? Interesting, that's horrible. We also have a bunch of tutorials on our website, or a tutorial, sorry, that will show you how to add a custom font if you have a custom font for your brand, and then as well as body font. Base size is pretty important because this is going to depend on, what phone you have, but base size says what is the default text size that you want on the website. So by default, this is probably going to look like this, and it's going to have nothing here. So the default is going to be set to about 16 pixels, which is like the root thing. Just know it's the default. But what I would recommend doing is changing the base size to rem, which stands for, it's the root element, which is equivalent to about 16 pixels in responsive elements. So we're trying to make a responsive website, so we want this to be in a responsive format. So if we change this base size to 1, nothing is going to change because it's going to be equal to about 16 pixels, which if we go to the previewer here, you can see that, you know, the website scales really well. Because you got desktop, you got phone, you really don't want to make a website that looks great on this desktop, but as the screens get smaller, you realize, you know, this text is huge because you made it huge on here, but now you have to go change it, you know, for every single width dimension that you have over here. So that's pretty much that for base size. And then the last thing we're going to go over is ratio. And ratio just says how much space is in between H1, H6, and then text elements. If you have a really large ratio, you are going to be able to tell huge differences. Again, this is also based on the base size. And then as we get smaller, we can see that the gap just gets closer and closer to all of these looking the exact same. So play around with that. By default, I think it looks pretty good. But again, you know, if you want to change anything, that's how you do it. So now we're going to get into designing, or at least like the basics of a page, going over the builder, and I will see you all in a second. Okay, so first step in making a website is knowing that you want to make a responsive and sustainable website. You do not want to have a website that looks great on, you know, maybe one PC, but on mobile it looks terrible and it's basically being held up on stilts. Yeah, we don't want to do that. So we're going to make sure throughout this, it might be a little bit more complicated as we work through this. I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible, but I'm going to be explaining everything in a responsive way. So there are like lazy ways of doing things, but like we're not going to be using pixels, which is something that, you know, for some things we will be, but yeah, just going to be making sure everything is responsive. So when you add a new element, you can add up here or you can click the add. You're going to see this huge element library, and it goes from basic things, blocks, which are already made, pre-made things like a pricing table, which already looks beautiful out of the box, to things like, what else do we have? Yeah, these are all like really cool things that you can add and you don't need to make yourself. You could add Facebook posts, really super cool. And then we also have some site things, which we're going to use this in our next tutorial. And then we have advanced, which will be more advanced things like adding custom code to the site or just any blocks, short codes. I'll explain all of these as we need them. And then we have dynamic. And so dynamic is going to change based on the content that you have on the page. We're not really going to use this until we hit the blog section, where we're going to be creating a blog template and showing you how to either use the default blog template or creating your own, and then using these elements to, you know, format the page. And the last thing is we have forms. Breakdance is amazing with login forms and customization like that. So we have an automatic form builder in here. I could show you what that looks like real quick. Just got, you know, your name, and you've got so many options to use, but not going to go over that now. We've got another video on that coming soon later in the series, but yeah, and then we'll have login and register. So tons of blocks that you have options to mess with. If you're ever unsure of how to do something, you can search and see if there's anything there. And if not, you know, then you could build it. But majority of the time, you should have all of the elements that you need. So let's get this started. To start off, we're going to add a section to the page, and a section is going to basically be the biggest categorization that you do have on the page. I use it to group things thematically. So on one page, I might have a section at the top, and that section is going to include the hero, which says, you know, we are the best web developers in town. And then I'll add another section under it, and that's going to have all the content about, maybe some text will be in it. And then we'll have another section that's going to be at the bottom that's got all the pricing elements in it. So it's really just to kind of keep everything organized. You'll see if you add any kind of element to the page without one, it's going to add a section for you. So sections are really just going to be, you know, here to control the page. So inside of here, we can add a div. A div is to divide content on the page. I organize everything through divs because it's great for organization, but we don't need it for everything that we do. But a div is basically cutting the section even smaller. So we have this section, which I'm going to change the background color to be gray, and then I'm going to change the div background color to be purple. And so doing this is just going to help you visualize what we're doing. And so the div we can add content to if we want to add a heading to the page. If we want to add text to the page, we could see how the format looks on the right-hand side. And it's going to scale to fit that no matter what. But let's say we want to take this div and we can change the layout. We could play around with a few things. The way that this is going to work is everything you change is going to be relative to the parent. So parent is, what it's on top of. You can click this to close it, to close this, but you can see the div is the child of the section, which means anything we do to the section is going to happen to the div. If we center the section, which the section will be under layout, and align it to the center, the div is going to go to the center. If we go into the div and we center the div, all the content is going to center in the div, not in the greater thing, because everything is relative to what it is in. That's probably a very big thing. Once you get that down, things become a lot more, they make sense structurally. But like if we wanted to take this div now and let's say stretch it across the screen, we're going to go into am I in the div? Container, sorry. We're going to be in the container, which contains everything in the div, and we have a width over here. And so I could change the width to 10 pixels, and you could see this is not what it should be. I could change it to 100, still doesn't capture everything. 200, and it does. But the reason you don't want to do 200 is because when we change it to the phone, we see, okay, it still looks good, right? But let's say we do 500. So again, looks good now. Change it to the phone, still looks good. I'm not sure how this will look with 1,000, but I'm assuming it'll run off the page. Okay, it doesn't, whatever, but still not a good practice. So basically what I was trying to show is to make the width take up 100% of the page, which is just in left to right size. We're going to click on pixels and switch this to percentage. Now, if we type 50%, the div is going to stretch halfway across whatever device we are on. If we're on a computer, it'll be 50% like this. If we're on a phone, it'll be 50% like this. If we want it to be 100, just like this. And so I hope that kind of makes sense with how it works. If you are confused on why we still have a little bit of a gap on the left and right, it is because by default sections have a padding, and padding is just what you think it is. Think of like a kid who's going ice skating, whereas knee padding and arm padding, that's what this is. It's like a comfy cushion that you have, and by default a section is going to have padding of 75 pixels at the top, 75 pixels at the bottom, 20 pixels on the left, and 20 pixels on the right. So if we do change the padding of the section to be 0 and 0, you can see that it stretches. I'm not sure why there's something here too, but you could see that it kind of gets rid of that. And then if we did 0 here and 0 here, then pretty much the whole section has nothing special to it. But yeah, so these have a little bit of padding on it, which is good. You could change it, but yeah, that's why it does that. So I guess the next thing in here is, let's see if there's any more settings. You could add some images to the background, change the background color. There's a lot of settings here. We could align this in the center. We could align it vertically in the center, which only matters if the height is not responsive. Yeah, so these are the basic things with divs. We'll have our header. We have our text that you can edit. If we want, we could change the tag like I mentioned earlier. And we can go ahead and change things like the typography, size, and spacing, like the color of this. So if you do remember, we did have the default heading text, which was that darker purple, but we can go ahead and change this to whatever color we want and style from there. So another really useful thing about Breakdance is if we hit add and see these elements, we can also click on the library, which brings up something, no clue what this error is. It's actually not working right now. Let me pull it up in a website that is working. Okay, Breakdance actually, it is not working right now, but this, I'll find a picture and see if I can put it on screen right now, but this is going to be a library of a bunch of elements that Breakdance has preloaded where you can add a bunch of things to the website pretty easily. So that's another way of quickly changing content, doing cool things like that. But yeah, so that's pretty much it with the defaults. That's how you use things. We do have a structure pane, which is these 3 little pieces of paper like this. Yeah, so this is the structure pane. This is the element control panel where you can go ahead and edit some settings. This bar has all of these other things. We've got some other preferences that we could do, but this is really up to you. And other than that, you have your preview, and then save and view your front end of the website. So this is what it'll look like to everyone coming to visit. But that's going to be it for this tutorial. This was kind of an introduction to web development, sort of, with Breakdance, adding some elements, and then going over the settings. Hope this was helpful. I will see you in the next video where we will be adding a header to our website. Thanks for watching.